breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer for the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in a few minutes by one of our good friends as John Bollman, who does great work with Baseball with Bollman. I know that we had Johnny Venezia on the podcast a few days ago. He is one of the main men that helps out Johnny on the Breaking Bet podcast. He's going to be joining me, and we're going to be talking with John just about this wild MLB playoff landscape that we've got, how things are just a little bit of a mess right now. Teams that are out of the playoff race, how you want to be gauging them, and we'll take a look at a few games that we've got for Friday as well. In the final segment, going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via the 5-star review. And while I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. EdgeBoost is making sure that bettors are able to have access to their funds whenever and wherever they want. With EdgeBoost, they make sure that 100% of gambling transactions do get approved. And when you go to EdgeBoost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That's going to get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's take a look back at everything that we saw in baseball on Thursday. Try to find some trends and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
The Pittsburgh Pirates have been one of your top under teams in all of baseball this year. 56 overs, 74 unders, and 5 pushes, and they played yet another under with the St. Louis Cardinals. 4-1, the Cardinals are able to get the job done. Miles Michaelis actually looked halfway decent in this one. He gave up a solo home run over the course of 5 innings, going deep for the Buccos. Tommy Pham, his 8th home run of the campaign. From there, bullpen holds down the fort. Kyle Leahy, 2 squirrel settings. Riley O'Brien, Jojo Romero, both Glendale squirrel setting, and Jordan Walker, the difference maker, a home run in the 7th inning off of Yohan Ramirez, 5th home run of the campaign. You don't mess with a Yohan Ramirez, well, you got to mess with 2/3 of an inning. He gave up 3 runs, including that home run. Braxton Ashcraft, another really nice start, by the way, for the Pirates. 1 run allowed in 5 2/3 innings. Joey Moreta was able to give you a pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and Colin Olderman, he lived up to his name. He was able to give you a scoreless inning, but too little too late there for the Philadelphia Phillies. They just absolutely unload on Cal Quantrill. 19-4 the final as for the Philadelphia Phillies. Kyle Schwarber goes deep not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. His 46th, 47th, 48th, and 49th home runs of the campaign. He goes off of Austin Dewey Cox twice. He goes deep off of Wander. I swear this guy sucks. And he goes deep off of Cal Quantrill. For Quantrill, he gave up 4 home runs, only one of which was to Kyle Schwarber, by the way. 9 runs in total, given up in 3 1/3 innings. Cox gives up 7 runs over the course of 3 innings. Wander, I swear this guy sucks, lived up to his name. 2 runs allowed in 1/3 of an inning. And Vidal Brujan, the position player, 1 1/3 innings, 1 run, and he gave the best performance of the night. Aaron Nola did give up a home run to Matt Olson, 21st home run of the campaign. For Nola, still not looking great. 4 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings, but team scoring 19 runs for you is a nice deodorant to that. You had from there Lou Trevino, lended squirrel setting, and Daniel Robert, 2 squirrel settings for the Phillies, and there were a few guys on names Schwarber that were able to go deep, like Bryce Harper, 22nd home run of the campaign, Max Kepler, 14th home run of the campaign, JT Realmuto, 11th home run of the season. Those all came off of Cal Quantrill, so not great there. Not great for the Mets, or should I say the Mets, as they had 3 errors in this game, so I put in there 3 E's for emphasis. 7-4, the Miami Marlins get the job done as Adam Mazur, an actually decent performance after he was terrible when he got his shot at the big league level with the Padres last year. 2 runs allowed in 4 innings. Lake Bakar, when he threw this one in the lake, gave up 2 runs over the course of an inning, including a home run to Pete Alonso, 30th home run of the campaign. But from there, Cade Gibson, Ronnie Enriquez combined for 3 scoreless innings. Calvin Fauché, a scoreless inning, and for the Mets, Clay Holmes gives up 4 runs in 5 innings, only 2 of which were earned. Now, he had a catch that he should have made. He had an error of his own that contributed to that. From there, Ryan Stanek, a scoreless inning. Gregory Soto, 3 unearned runs given up in 1/3 of an inning. He was really hurt by some errors out there. And then Kevin Harrigan, 2 2/3 innings scoreless, but that snaps the Mets a little bit of a hot run. For the San Francisco Giants, they're getting on a run. They take down the Chicago Cubs, and they complete the sweep in this one. 4-3 the final is for the Cubs. Shota Imanaga, 3 runs allowed over the course of 7 innings, including a pair of home runs as Willie Adames was able to go deep twice, 23rd and 24th home runs of the campaign. From there, Brad Keller, squirrel setting. Daniel Palencia allows a game-winning single to Jung-Ho Lee that ended the game, and for the Chicago Cubs, they were able to get 2 runs up on the board in the first 2 innings, and then from there, pretty silent, as you did have Dansby Swanson get his 19th home run season off of Logan Webb, and Webb gives one up to Michael Busch, 25th home run of the campaign. Webb gives up 3 runs in 7 innings, including those 2 bombs. Jose Buto, squirrel setting. Joey Lucchesi and Ryan Walker were both able to combine for a squirrel setting thing to be able to get the job done there, and also being able to get the job done. The Orioles, for another under, have been a really good under team this year. 56 overs, 74 unders, and 4 unders. They're tied with the Pirates for second best under rate in all of baseball, 3-2. The Boston Red Sox do get it done. Garrett Crochet got into a little bit of a sticky wicket, but gives up 2 runs over the course of 6 innings. He does allow a home run to Alex Jackson, his 4th home run of the campaign, and from there the Red Sox bullpen went to work. Jordan Hicks, Garrett Whitlock, Steven Matz all lend a squirrel setting, and for the Red Sox it was story time. Chapter number 22 in his home run book, 22nd home run of the campaign for him. That comes off of Cade Povich, and Povich gives one up to Rob Refsnyder, 17th home run season. Povich gives up 2 runs over the course of 5 innings, evaded a lot of danger, giving up 7 hits. Cade Stout from there, 2 squirrel settings. Uncle Rico Garcia gives up a run in an inning, so he did not throw the ball over the mountains, but rather over the plate. And then you had a squirrel setting from Sean Dubin, newly released by the Houston Astros, and for the Orioles, 1 of 11 with men in scoring position. Less than tremendous there. The Rockies have been pretty tremendously under as well. 57 overs, 74 unders, and 3 pushes, so they have been your 3rd best under team in the National League. 4-3, they fall to the Houston Astros. As for the Rockies, Kyle Freeland gives up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings, including a pair of home runs. Christian Walker was able to go deep for his 20th home run season. He will go deep off of Luis Peralta later on for his 21st home run of the season. Then Jose Altuve, also off of Freeland, 23rd home run in the campaign. For Peralta, gives up a solo home run in his inning of work. And then Juan Mejia, he was able to lend a squirrel setting of his own for the Rockies. They strand 10 men on base, and they do get a pair of home runs. Ezekiel Tovar was able to go deep for home run number 10 of the campaign, and Yanquiel Fernandez, hopefully I got that first name correct, his 2nd home run of the campaign. Those come off of Jason Alexander. No relation to George Costanza, but nothing funny about giving up 3 runs over the course of 5 2/3 innings. Did punch out 8, and then from there the bullpen did their part. You had Steven Okert and Aniel de los Santos both give you an out of the bullpen. Caleb Bort, pair of outs out of the bullpen squirrels. And then the Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu, they were both able to lend a squirrel setting. Back-to-back rare losses for the Milwaukee Brewers. They fall to the Arizona Diamondbacks by a count of 6-4, as in these past 2 games, the Milwaukee Brewers had combined 3 of 24 with men in scoring position. They went 1 of 12 on this day. You did have Sal Frelick go deep off of Nebo Chrismet for his 10th home run season. Chrismet, 5 2/3 innings, allows 4 runs, only 2 of which were earned. Blaze Alexander had a fielding error out there, but for the Diamondbacks, despite going just 2 of 14 with men in scoring position, they did a nice job of getting to Jose Quintana, who I thought he was doing for regression, and boy was he. 3 2/3 innings, he gives up 6 runs, all of which were earned. Tobias Myers, very good in long relief, 3 1/3 innings scoreless, and then Easton McGee was able to give you 2 scoreless innings, but for the Diamondbacks, bullpen was able to hold up as well. How about Jalen Beeks with an out of the bullpen scoreless, and Taylor Rashi in his MLB debut at the age of 29, 3 scoreless innings to be able to hold down the fort, and also being able to hold down the fort. How about the New York Yankees wrapping up the night with a very demonstrative win by a count of 10-4 over the Chicago White Sox. For the Yankees, they did a really nice job in terms of just being able to get to Mr. Davis Martin, 4 runs, 3 of which were earned, given up by him, including a pair of bombs. Going deep for the New York Yankees, Cody Bellinger, his 26th home run of the campaign. Jazz Chisholm, he was able to go deep for his 26th as well. Trent Grisham a little bit later on off of Cam Bouger, his 27th home run of the campaign. For the White Sox, they had 3 errors out there as well. So Bouger, he gives up that home run in his 2/3 of an inning of work. Steven Wilson gives up a run in an inning. Wilkman Gonzalez gives up 2 runs, but only 1 of which was earned in 1 1/3 innings. And Tyler Alexander, 2 1/3 innings. He gives up 2 runs, both of which were earned. Will Warren does give up a home run to Miguel Vargas, 14th home run of the campaign. For Warren, gives up 4 unearned runs as Anthony Volpe, his 18th error of the season, and he's currently hitting, I believe now, 207. So that was a little bit less than savory, but did have a multi-hit game on Thursday, so yay verily there. And then from there, Fernando Cruz, Luke Weaver, David Williams, Mark Leiter, they get the job done out of the bullpen with squirrel settings to be able to get that one to the window. And if you're looking trend-wise at what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, it's been overall for the season underwhelming, but if you look at the last 7 and 30 days, we have seen a bunch of overs. Overall for the season, the under rate is right around 51.2%, 937 overs to 981 unders, with favorites hitting at about 57%, 1,134 and 853 on the money line. If you look at the last 7 days in baseball, favorites have been very dominant, 60 and 35 on the money line, with the over rate being right around about 53.5%, 49 overs to 42 unders. And if you look at the last 30 days in Major League Baseball, favorites a hair above 57%. 221 and 165 on the money line. Meanwhile, the over 8 that's sitting at about 54%, 200 overs to 170 unders. So that's where we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming up next, how about if we do chat with one of our good friends, John Bollman, who does great work with Baseball with Bollman. He joins me on the flip side right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Feast and Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the Feast and Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got John Bollman aboard, as he does a tremendous job taking a look at this great game of baseball. I know he's been doing some great work with our friend Johnny Venezio. He joined this podcast a few days ago over on the Breaking Bet podcast. I know that John Bollman does a great job with his Dub Club. He does a great job with Baseball with Bollman as well. He's all over the place taking a look at not just professional baseball, but also does a great job on the college baseball front as well. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at John Bollman, his first and last name, and then the number 11 altogether. And John, always great to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, always appreciate you having me on, man. Always happy to talk some baseball, especially with the season winding down now.
Yes, absolutely. We are in the meat of it, about a month remaining. And just how do you take a look at the playoff picture? Because I've been a baseball fan my entire life, and I can't remember quite a season where it's been quite this open, where it feels like there's not a lot of separation between any of these teams in darn near any of these divisions. And in either league especially, it just feels so open, and these teams all feel oh so flawed this year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's a perfect team out there right now. Whereas, in the past we've said, in the past it's been the Dodgers multiple times. They just haven't won a championship multiple times because obviously we know anything can happen in the playoffs. But there are plenty of races coming down to the wire. Lots of teams still in it. It seems like one of these good teams could get swept and suddenly one of the teams chasing them sweeps, and all of a sudden, some of these teams are tied. So I do think it's going to be one of the more fun stretches in the past few years.
Absolutely, and I do think that we are going to have ourselves a great race in general. And is there any team or two that you're starting to feel a little bit bullish on? Because as I've been looking at things, the more that I look at the Seattle Mariners, the more that I feel good about them because they've dealt with so many injuries. If they could get like Bryce Miller going a little bit more, I would be feeling a little bit better about them. So they're a team that I'm a little bit stock up on. Is there a team or two out there that you feel like might be finding the groove and they might be starting to peak at just the right time?
Yeah, so kind of like we said earlier, I really do think any of these teams could win, any of them could lose. I think the AL is wide open, as wide open as it gets. I do think the Astros and the Mariners, with their moves, probably have the best teams. Maybe the Mariners, to be honest, would be my best team. But the Yankees are starting to play really well right now. The Red Sox are starting to play really well right now. So I really do. And we know the Blue Jays are good. They've been good all season. They've just had that bugaboo in the postseason, haven't been able to win any games. So I really think anything could happen on the AL there. NL, we know the Dodgers are the team to beat. They're starting to finally get healthy again. That bullpen's been decimated. And the Brewers, we knew they were going to slow down after that insane stretch. So the Cubs are kind of coming back to catch them a bit. And then I was hoping the Reds in my plus 300 future would, have more of a chance, but I think the Mets are pulling away right now.
Yeah, it's just been a lot of runs in general. And just how do we take a look at handicapping baseball in the final month of the season? Because there's a big giant sample size of over 130 games on all of these teams. But you mentioned with the New York Mets, you had to throw that out the window the last few weeks until they were able to get back online with the New York Yankees. They've been looking like a completely different team over the last few weeks. And the Brewers were as hot as lava. Now they're starting to come back to earth. So you had to throw out the season numbers for them for a few weeks as well. And it just feels very strange because you always want to be putting a lot of credence into what a team has done overall for the season, but at the same time, you just mentioned it, these are some very streaky teams this season.
Yeah, you can even see the record in the last 10 games for all of these teams right now. Not a single team has a better record than 7-3, and not a single team has a worse record than 3-7. So it just shows how I mean, one, how the best teams don't win every single game at this point in the season, and how, these lower teams are giving some younger guys shots, and, anything could happen with those games. So, if that doesn't show the parity right now, I don't know what does.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been absolutely insane what we've been seeing there. John Bollman, who does such great work with Baseball with Bowman, joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And we've got a lot of this intrigue that is going to be lingering into a Friday, as well as the Arizona Diamondbacks were able to stop the Milwaukee Brewers, and they were able to get a few wins. But Zach Allen, as we know, has been absolutely terrible. And this, I think, might be the key for not just the LA Dodgers, but perhaps that National League playoff picture. Blake Snell, and he has looked so good since coming off the injury list. Right now with the Dodgers, they're total in this game for Fridays at 8.5, and Snell's right around about a -$2 favorite. How do you look at not just this game for Snell, but in moving forward? Because we know this with Snell. When he is on, he is one of the best pitchers on the face of planet Earth. But when he's off, sometimes it's just a complete and utter disaster.
I see it at -194 on DraftKings right now. I think that's one where you've got to hammer because it's going to come up. And I know it's really juicy, but you could end up going -1.5 if you want to. But I think that's going to go way higher. The D-backs have been playing better lately, but Blake Snell's been pitching great. Zach Allen's been absolutely terrible. And the Dodgers are getting healthy now. You got Kirby Yates back, Tanner Scott back. That's been their biggest problem lately, is these bullpen pitchers.
Yeah, it really has been. And then I do have to ask you about this, as we're going to be seeing with the New York Mets, a team that has had struggles with their pitching. I think it's about the most polite way of putting it. Jonah Tong, who has been amazing at the minor league level, he makes his MLB debut against the Marlins. Right now, the Mets are between -150 to -160 favorites, and I think that this is such a tricky game because if you base it on the minor league numbers and the minor league numbers only, Tong has been one of the best prospects I've seen in quite some time, but I love fading guys to their first start because the nerves oftentimes get to them. There's oftentimes high expectations, and there are for our good friend and Mr. Jonah Tong here, and a lot of times they don't live up to it. Not everyone can be Paul Skeens or Steven Strasburg when they make their debut. How do you take a look at a game like this for a guy that I think is going to be very key for the Mets in the final month of the regular season?
This one at -164 right now, I think it might be a little juicy on the Mets, but the thing is the Marlins, a couple things. Eury Perez has really been the only Marlins pitcher right now. They DFA'd Cal Quantrill, and he was playing well. And Sandy Alcantara, who's figuring it out now. But Eury Perez has been one of the few that's been consistent. The thing with the Marlins, and I don't get to watch a ton of Marlins games because I'm blacked out where I live, discussion for another time. But I was able to watch a game the other day. They were saying how all these pitchers are around their innings limits. And so they're not necessarily using all these pitchers and all the leverage opportunities that they would be in. So I think that's massive for the Marlins. I really think they're going to struggle down the stretch, and the Mets are starting to play well, especially at home right now. So that might be able to cover the inexperience with Tong.
Yep, and I think that that's something so interesting that you bring up because late in the season, a team that's out of the playoff race like the Miami Marlins, I think that those are such interesting games. Those are such interesting teams to be able to gauge because when it comes to some of these teams, they fight really hard. They're working to be able to get back to 500, build upward momentum going into 2026. But some of these teams as well, like you mentioned, the inning limits are coming up for them as well. How do you gauge them? Because year in and year out, we get a few surprise teams that they put together like a winning September after they had won like 50 games in the first few months of the season and they were completely out of it. And then you have some of these teams that they go from bad to worse in the final month of the season.
Yeah, it's really difficult, right? Because you have so many of these new guys, so many, prospects coming up, and they're playing for their jobs on these really bad teams. So they obviously have the motivation there. Then you have these really good teams who, they're playing for playoff position. Every game matters to them. But that also, I think a big thing there is that doesn't mean they're going to win every game. That doesn't mean they're going to win every series. And I think that's a big mistake that people make down the stretch. Just because they should win a game, they have to win a game, doesn't mean they will. Especially teams that aren't playing well down the stretch, thinking even they still need to win games. So I think that's something very important to think of too. But there's just so much, I guess, at stake the last month of the season between jobs and between playoff spots that creates that situation.
Yep, it certainly does. And there's always a lot of fun to be taking a look at there. And then I always think that a team like this is so intriguing. The Atlanta Braves, who had such high expectations coming into the year, and they are going to fall so short of them. They trot out their Bryce Elder on Friday, and they are less than $2 underdogs, which I don't necessarily agree with. Ranger Suarez is going to be on the bump for the Phillies. How do you take a look at not just this game, but a team like the Braves in the final month of the season as to whether or not they're going to fight, they're going to try to be able to build some momentum going into 2026, or if they just feel sorry for themselves and they just completely tank the final month of the season?
Yeah, this one's tough. I do really want to see the game on Wednesday night first. I want to, feel the vibes of that game, see how the Phillies do coming home after, I believe they got swept against the Mets.
Yes.
See how they do with Aaron Nola going first, who's been terrible. I think that'll show a lot. Then the other thing to throw out, these are two division rivals. The Braves have the talent to, win any game, any night. They've lost the most one-run games in the entire league. But the Phillies are so good at home. So, I would lean Phillies there, but I do think these games are going to be closer than we think. That being said, I'm not too high on Bryce Elder this year at all.
Oh, he has been absolutely terrible, and I'll go a little bit further for you. In the last 12 starts, he's got an 8.06 ERA. That is an almighty bad run for him, and is there anything else that you're going to be taking a look at for Friday, whether that be a team that you want to see a little bit more from, a game or two that you're looking to bet, just anything on Friday that's really catching your attention?
I think a fun matchup will be the Blue Jays Brewers, because we know the Brewers were on that super long streak. We got Freddie Peralta and Shane Bieber making his, first start back from injury. So I think that's going to be a really interesting game. Two teams that are pretty much certain going to make the playoffs, and, two really good pitchers too. So I think that's going to be a great game. And then you already hit on it, the Diamondbacks Dodgers. I mean, Diamondbacks, haven't been great, but I feel like there's a microscope on the Dodgers at this point, figuring out if they can be the same team as last year.
And then I think that this is also of intrigue as well, not necessarily because the game has the utmost importance, but Cade Horton is going to be starting on Friday at Coors Field. How do you take a look at his prospects for NL Rookie of the Year? Because I know that our good friend Johnny Venezia was talking about it on this podcast a few days ago. He went from north of 20-1 to now being the favorite to win NL Rookie of the Year. And I think that this is such a critical start because, as we know, at Coors Field, funky things can happen and it can balloon up your ERA.
Yeah, I mean, the Cade Horton, rising has been unbelievable ever since college. He had a 5-something, 6-something in college, but an absolutely dominant run in the College World Series. Got his stock up to all the way in the first round, and now he's dominating with the Cubs already. So this kid lives for big games. That being said, first time at Coors Field, you really don't know what's going to happen. And the Rockies have been playing better lately, relatively. They haven't been losing 9 of 10. They've been losing 6 or 7 of 10. And the Cubs aren't hitting right now. And then there are two things that could go into that is either the Cubs go into Coors Field and they figure out they're hitting, or they go in there and they don't. So it's tough there. I don't really like that number much.
Yeah, and it's always tricky whenever you go to Coors Field because you never know what's going to happen. Even though the Rockies have been not good this year, to say the least, that's about as kindly as I could put it. Even when you have a bad Rockies team, sometimes you just have a harebrained and crazy game at elevation. And things are always great when you're on this podcast, John. You do such an amazing job gauging this great game of baseball. So let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people are able to follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, it's at Baseball with Bollman on Instagram, and then at John Bollman 11 on X. And, that's where I post most of my content. That's where pretty much everything should be. And if you want to subscribe to, all my information and all my picks, my website is in my bio. So appreciate you having me on as always.
Always great to be able to get John aboard. He does an incredible job taking a look at this great game of baseball, and every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. So a big thanks to John for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VC Family Podcast. It is always great to be joined by John Bollman. He does great work with Baseball with Bowman. I know that he's been doing a lot of work with our good friend Johnny Venezia on the Breaking Bet podcast. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So, big thanks to John for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81, and we're going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first, then the American League games, any interleague games. Those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So how about if we do get things started with 9:51, 9:52 on the card? It is the St. Louis Cardinals, and they're on the road. They're facing off against the Cincinnati Reds. And yes, we're on to Cincinnati. He's on to Zach Littell, who hopes he'll come up big for the Reds. And Matthew Liberatore is on the bump for the Cardinals. So on this game is 9. The under is between -115 to a -120. Over is between even -105. The Reds are between -120 to -126 favorites. +105 to +111 is that number on the Cardinals. And I am going to be one to lay it with the Reds. I did set them at a -133. For Matthew Liberatore, I do think that positivity is coming for him, but that said, it just hasn't quite happened yet because he doesn't get a lot of deception. 7 strikeouts per 9 innings. He only gives up 1 home run, 2.3 walks per 9 innings. So while he's got a 4.27 ERA, I feel he pay him closer to a 3.87, but still, it's one of those cases where you would think that things would be going a little bit better for him. 3+ runs allowed in each out of his last 5 starts, so that's been a little bit less than savory. And when it comes to Matthew Liberatore, he is backed up by a bullpen that, in my opinion, is relatively solid. They're in the top 6 in terms of ERA at a 3.65. You've got a lot of guys like Jojo Romero, Matt Vanson, along with Kyle Leahy, who have been able to give you a sub-3.25 ERA. They trade away Ryan Helsley, which has actually been a good thing for the team. Ryan Fernandez could be a little bit of a roll of the dice, but all in all, these guys have been able to do a solid job. The big issue that you've got with the St. Louis Cardinals has been the lineup, as for St. Louis, you just have not had a lot of guys be able to crank it deep for you other than Wilson Contreras. He's up to 19 home runs. Apparently, he's going to be facing a suspension at some point, even though he's been in the lineup last few games, about a 340 on base for him. You do have Alec Burleson, who's been able to crank out 16 home runs as well. He's hitting about a 285, but then you've got a lot of other guys that have been very suspect. Jordan Walker was able to hit a home run yesterday for the team, but Victor Scott, Pedro Paez, Owen Gorman, a lot of young guys hitting between about a 225 to 235, and you could use a little bit more there. And when it comes to Thomas Segezi, he's not giving you a lot of power, only 1 home run, but he's been able to hit it for about a 250. So that's been solid. But again, for the Cardinals, they and the Chicago Cubs are actually your bottom 2 teams in the National League in terms of run scoring ever since the All-Star break. And for the Cincinnati Reds, it's a pretty steady Eddie lineup. Ellie De La Cruz is obviously your main guy for the team. He's been able to belt out 19 home runs. He's given you about a 345 on base, so you absolutely love to see that. And then you have TJ Friedel is able to give you about a 365 on base. Gavin Lux closer to about a 350 on base. These guys have been able to go out there, do a relatively solid job. Austin DeSay's kid has been able to give you a bit of something in about a 265 as well. But it's been really Novalio Marte who has stepped up. He's up to about 11 home runs and 230 at-bats. He's hitting for a 295. He has been very rock solid for the team, so you'll love that for him. You have had a few ups and downs with this lineup. They had to get rid of Jake Fraley because that was just not working out, but Cabrian Hayes, ever since he joined the lineup, he's been able to give you a little bit more power, as well as he's been able to give you a pair of bombs, about a 310 on base. And for the Reds, this is a solid bullpen. It's about league average. The long guys have been able to do their part. You've got someone like a Graham Ashcraft, Scott Barlow, giving you a sub 375 ERA. Emilio Pagan gives up a few more deep balls than what I'd like, but he and Tony St. 19. I've been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. The big thing for Zach Littell is that he needs to stop giving up the deep ball so much, and he's been able to do a much better job ever since he got to Cincinnati. As when he was pitching a little bit earlier in the season for the Tampa Bay Rays, he was giving up 1.8 home runs per 9 innings. Since getting to Cincinnati, relatively a hitter's ballpark if you look at the lifetime of the ballpark, 0.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings. With the Reds, he actually has a higher ERA than he did with Rays, even though his home runs per 9 rate was double with the Rays. But I do think that for Mr. Littell, he's going to be able to go out there, give you a relatively good start. He is only giving up 1.6 walks per 9 innings, albeit he's giving up 6.2 punch-outs per 9 innings as well, so not getting a lot of swing and miss. So do think that the ball's going to be in play quite a bit. So I tell 9.2. I like the over, and for the Reds, we'll delay up to a minus 132 on that money line. 953, 954 on the card. The Philadelphia Phillies play host to the Atlanta Braves, as you've got Bryce Elder hoping to look elderly for the Braves, and Ranger Suarez is on the bump for the Phillies, and the Phillies do find themselves as pretty good sized favorites of between minus 169 to a minus 182, between plus 149 to a plus 156 as that number on Atlanta, and the total is 9, the under is minus 120, and the over is even. And for the Phils, I did set them at a minus 231 on the money line. If you're looking to lay a run half right now, that initial FanDuel opener, I'm finding a little bit of plus money here on the Philadelphia Phillies, and I'd be willing to take anything of plus money, as I was willing to lay up to a minus 120 right now. Find that at a plus 112 for Ranger Suarez. He's just been a steady Eddie guy this season. He's posting up an ERA of a 307. The fielding dependent is relatively in line with that. Not necessarily a massive strikeout guy, about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's only giving up about 2.1 walks, 0.7 home runs per 9 innings, so he's been able to do a really good job with that regard. And you take a look at the other end for Bryce Elder, and man, it's not been great. 6.12 ERA. He's giving up 1.5 home runs, 3.4 walks per 9 innings, less than 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and the nightmare has really been recently. 8.06 ERA in his last 12 starts. Not to say that he was amazing prior to this run, but this has been an absolute disaster of a run for him, so that has not been amazing to say the least. And when it comes to this Braves lineup, it's actually been really good ever since the All-Star break. If you look at things since the break, they have been a top 6 team in terms of runs per game. Ronald Acuna Jr. coming back into the fold has certainly been able to help out with that. When you're giving you north of a 400 base, that always helps out. 15 home runs at about 240 at-bats. Do love to see that. Marcell Ozuna, Matt Olson, both are able to give you about a 360 on base with 20 home runs apiece, albeit Ozuna has only been able to hit about a 229, so would like to see that go northward. But Michael Harris, even though his on-base percentage is a 273, he's been able to give you 17 home runs. Ozzy Albies, he's been able to belt out 13 bombs. He's been able to supply an on-base percentage only about a 300, though, so that's been a bit of an issue. You've had Austin Riley go out of the fold, and he's out for the season. And Nick Allen, 0 home runs, hitting a 220. That's an issue, but I would say the bigger issue for the Atlanta Braves has actually been this bullpen. As for the bullpen, it has been a case for Raisel Iglesias and Aaron Bummer. Well, they have lived up to their names. They have been bummers. Both of these guys north of a 3.70 ERA. You've got Dylan Dodd, who's been up and down, about a 3.50 ERA. Pierce Johnson has actually been really good. He, Desbel Hernandez, Dylan Lee, give you a sub 3.45 ERA. They've been able to go out there and do their part. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, if you look overall for the season, they're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, but you bring in Yohan Duran, who's one of the better closers that you're going to find in all of baseball. They've been able to get some really effective play out of the likes of a Tanner Banks, Orion Kerkering, Matt Strahm, these guys being able to supply a sub 3.25 ERA. They've gotten Jordan Romano out of that bullpen, and man, that guy was absolutely terrible. You could use a little bit less Seth Johnson along with Joe Ross as well, but overall it does feel like the Phillies are starting to get in line. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, they've been a much better offense when they've been at home rather than away from home. For the Philadelphia Phillies, this team is averaging about 5.3 runs per game at home. That is number 2 in the National League to only the LA Dodgers, and you've had a guy in Kyle Schwarber just absolutely carry the team. He's been supplying 45 home runs, over a 365 on base, and then Bryce Harper now give you a 360 on base with 21 home runs. That's been a help for this team. Nick Castellanos is only give you about a 294 on base, but 16 home runs. You've got a lot of guys hitting in that neighborhood about a 265 to 270. Harper, I mentioned before, JT Realmuto, Umando Sosa, they've been able to do a solid job there. You've had Trey Turner be able to give you about a 350 on base with 32 stolen bases as well. So do think that the Phillies go out there, get the job done, and take it to Bryce Elder. I did set my total at a 9.3, so to go along with that Philadelphia Phillies run line, I'm also in on this line over 955, 956 on the card. The Miami Marlins are on the road against the New York Mets as Eury Perez is on the bump for Miami, and it is the debut of Jonah Tong for the Mets, and the Mets are pretty sizable favorites here. They're between minus 155 to a minus 165, anywhere in the neighborhood of a plus 135 to a plus 149 is that number on Miami with an 8.5 total. The under is minus 125 and the over is plus 105. Seeing a straight 8 out there, and that over and under both at minus 110. I did set my total at 7.7, so I am going to be in on the under. For Jonah Tong, he was absolutely dominant at the minor league level. I know that he was a highly touted prospect coming into the season. He has only been able to help out his cause ever since then, and for the young 22-year-old, my goodness. The numbers that he's put up this season. At the minor league level, a 1.43 ERA with 14.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. In 113 innings, he allowed 2 home runs. Just absolutely insane right there. Now, will that translate to the big league level? I'm not 100% in. For the Miami Marlins, I will say this has actually been a very effective offense when they've been on the road this far this season. As for the Miami Marlins, when they've been at home, they've been providing absolutely nothing whatsoever. But they're 6th in the big leagues in terms of runs per game away from home with 4.75. But said they're currently dealing with an injury to Kyle Stowers. That's your main home run hitter with 25 bombs, give you about a 370 on base. So that's going to be a little bit of an issue for the team moving forward. You do have Agustin Ramirez who's been able to supply 19 home runs, but he's only hitting about a 235. You expect much more out of him. And then additionally, you've been having some ups and downs with regards to this lineup, as Otto Lopez has been able to give you a double-figure amount of homers, but he's not necessarily give you a ton there. You've had Eric Wagaman only hitting about a 245. I will say Xavier Edwards at the top, hitting for about a 350 on base. That's been encouraging. And for the New York Mets, it's been a little bit of a top-heavy lineup of their own. You've got a quartet of guys who are giving you at least 20 home runs: Brandon Nimmo, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, and Francisco Lindor, with Lindor and Alonso both hitting at 265, both in the neighborhood of a 335 to a 350 on base, Soto a 390 on base. And you've had Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos pick it up recently, both hitting in the neighborhood of about a 245, 15 home runs for Beatty. Vientos is up to 13 bombs, so these guys have been able to do a rock solid job there. And then Jeff McNeil has been able to for about a 345 on base. He's been able to give you a bit of something. Catcher spot with Luis Torrens has not been great, and Tyrone Taylor has been miserable at the plate. But also for the Mets, you've got a bullpen that has been shaky, to say the least. You've got quite a few guys that you just need to get a little bit more out of. Ryan Helsley has been terrible ever since coming on over. They have Reed Garrett, who's now posting up an ERA hovering right around 360. Oscar Barzobin has been having his issues, but you've had Tyler Rogers be able to give you some good innings. And Gregory Soto thus far as well. I do think that the bottom's going to fall out on Gregory Soto, and obviously Edwin Diaz has been able to do a rock solid job. And for Erie Perez, he has been much better when he has been at home rather than on the road, but I've liked what I've seen out of Erie Perez thus far this season, as he's doing a good job of being able to limit our contact. 344 ERA, giving up 0.9 home runs per 9 innings, about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. He comes in relatively good form, having given up 5 total runs, 3 of which earned over the course of his last 2 starts. And for Erie Perez, getting to those home and road splits that I was promising a little bit before, a 442 road ERA, 225 ERA at home, and all 7 home runs that he's given up this far this season have been on the road, though New York is a little bit more of a pitcher's ballpark, so did set my total at 7.7. I like the under. With the Mets, I did set their money line at a minus 145. Right now, I'm seeing as high as a plus 149 on the Marlins. I'll be willing to take a shot on the Marlins' faded guy in his MLB debut to go along with that total under. 957, 958 on the card. The Chicago Cubs are on the road against the Colorado Rockies. Edman Marquez is on the bump for the Rockies, and Cade Horton. Let's see if he hears a who for the Cubs, and the Cubs are sizable favorites. Minus 230 to minus 235. And between plus 188 to plus 206 is that number on Colorado. 11.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. And if you're looking to lay a run half right now with the Chicago Cubs, obviously you're utilizing that old FanDuel opener. That's a minus 140, and I'd be willing to lay a minus 140. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 165. Cade Horton has been absolutely magnificent for this team. How about a 288 ERA overall for the season? Not necessarily some sort of strikeout artist or anything like that, but he's just been inducing soft contact all year long, and it's really come together from recently. 2 runs allowed over the course of his last 7 starts, 0 or 1 runs allowed in 8 out of his last 9 starts, 0.8 home runs to 2.8 walks allowed per 9 innings thus far this season. He has been magnificent, and for Edman Marquez, there might be a little bit of positivity to him from. Now for Edman Marquez, he's going to be making his first start in a little bit over a month since July 20th, as he spent some time on the injured list. 5.67 ERA, but a 4.58 fielding dependent, about 1.2 home runs, 3.2 walks allowed per 9 innings. Not a ton of deception with 6.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but this is a Cubs lineup that has really fallen off. Since the All-Star break, they are second worst in the big leagues in terms of run scoring, with only about 3.8 runs per game. You still do have Michael Busch supplying 25 home runs, and these guys are moving the line, getting on base. Busch, a 340 on base. Kyle Tucker, he's been stuck on 18 to 19 home runs for quite a while, but 375 on base. Seiya Suzuki, Pete Armstrong, they both have given you 27 to 28 home runs apiece, but they've been experiencing a power outage. They've been looking to their young gun to be able to give them something in Owen Cassie, but other than that series against the Brewers, he hasn't necessarily provided a whole lot either. I will say Matt Shaw has actually been a little bit better for the team recently, and with his Cubs bullpen, you do have quite a few guys that have gone out there and have been able to do a solid job for the team, like Caleb Theobar, Taylor Rogers, Brad Keller, Daniel Palencia, Drew Pomeranz. These are all guys that have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, and then on the other end, you've got a Colorado Rockies team that is currently second worst in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Zach Cognos being on the injured list does not help out the cause. You've got the likes of Nick Anderson, Luis Peralta. A lot of guys are posting up an ERA that's well above a 5. Anel Shavili has been terrible. Victor Vodnik, Jimmy Erget, both of these guys have been able to give you an ERA below a 4. And for the Colorado Rockies, they do a much better job in terms of moving the line and getting on base at home rather than on the road. But it's still not necessarily a great offense. They're still 29th out of 30 teams when you look at their overall run scoring this year. You do have a quartet of guys who will be able to give you between 10 and 11 home runs at home this far this season. One of them traded away in Ryan McMahon, but Mickey Moniak, Hunter Goodman, Brenton Doyle, they've all been solid there. And for Doyle, he's sitting at 325 at home compared to less than a $175 away from home. You got something like an Ezekiel Tovar, who is giving you a 383 on base at home, so that's been relatively solid, though he's been dealing with injuries all season long. But even some of these other guys, they still haven't been able to hit at home, like Kyle Farmer, Orlando Arcia, are still hitting below the Mendoza line of a 200. I do think that the Rockies have it taken to them. I do think that Horton continues to be relatively dominant. Maybe I told 10.9, so you're at the 11.5. I'm in on the under, and I do like the Cubs on the run line. 9:59, 9:60 on the card. The Arizona Diamondbacks are on the road against the LA Dodgers. Blake Snell is on the bump for the Dodgers, and Zach Gallen hopes to fill it up for the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks who find themselves as a pretty sizable underdog, as you're going to be getting them between a plus 162 to a plus 170, and between minus 183 to a minus 195. That number on the Dodgers, with 8.5 being the total. Over is between even money and minus 110. The under is between minus 110 to a minus 120. And when it comes to the Dodgers, I did set their run line price at a minus 110. Right now, looking at that initial opener, you're finding it at a plus 114. So sign me up there. For Zach Gallen, this has just been an absolutely miserable season for him. For Zach Gallen, you would have thought that he would have been able to give you a little bit more of something. And last year was a little bit of a fall off after that great 2023, but 1.5 home runs, 3.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, career low 8.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, 5.13 ERA, 4.58 fielding dependent. Has been better recently, with 3 earned runs or fewer allowed in each out of his last 5 starts, but still, it has been a disaster of a season, and he is backed up by an Arizona Diamondbacks bullpen that, well, they are not great. They are in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. They've been a little bit better recently, as Andrew Saalfrank has really been able to give this team a shot in the arm. He has been very rock solid in this bullpen, but still, you've got a lot of guys that are rocking an ERA above a 4. Jake Woodford, Juan Murillo. These guys have just not been able to give you much of anything whatsoever. And then Bryce Jarvis, as a long guy, has not been amazing. John Curtis with 2 S's has been able to give you a sub 3.50 ERA, but Kyle Bacchus, Jalen Beeks, these guys have been rough. Pavin Smith has returned, but he's now in and out of the lineup. We'll see how long he's going to be out for, as he missed the game yesterday against the Milwaukee Brewers. He's going to give you about a 3.50 on base, but this is still a Diamondbacks team that ranks in the top 6 of the big leagues in terms of runs per game, albeit not the same without Eugenio Suarez along with Josh Naylor, but Corbin Carroll has still been able to give you some good power. He's been able to supply the team with 27 home runs this far this season. Geraldo Perdomo continues to move the line. He's been able to give you above a 380 on base. And Ketel Marte slowed down with the power, stuck on 23 home runs, but again, still give you about a 380 on base. So you've got a lot of guys that are doing a nice job finding a way on. And for the LA Dodgers, this team is number 1 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game at home, with about 5.7 runs per game, albeit they have not been the same offense all season long when they've been without Max Muncy. Muncy is back on the injury list, so that's an issue. And Freddie Freeman is right now dealing with a few ailments as well, but Will Smith continues to get jiggy with it with over a 400 on base. Mookie Betts just has not had a great season, but it feels like it's starting to pick up a little bit more for him. You look at what he's been able to do over the last 30 days, and it's been one of his best stretches of the campaign as he's been able to hit for about a 350 on base in that time span. Not a ton of power, but he's starting to get on a little bit more consistently. And then obviously Shohei Ohtani is doing Shohei Ohtani things, above a 380 on base, 45 home runs, and Andy Paz, Teoscar Hernandez, 21 home runs apiece for the Dodgers. The bullpen has been an issue, but now you've got Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates back in the fold, although both of these guys have been supplying over a 3.75 ERA. Ben Kasparis has been absolutely terrible for this team, and that's an issue with Alex Vesia on the injury list, but Jack Dreyer has been able to give you sub 350 ERA. Whenever they've had Brock and Roll Stewart out there, he's been solid, but he's been dealing with some injuries as well. But Blake Snell, ever since that first start coming off the injury list, he has been very rock solid for the team. Overall, for the season, a sub 2 ERA. Now always gives up the walks, over 4 walks per 9 innings, but you look at what he's been able to do over his last 3 starts, a combined 15 innings, allowing 2 home runs, getting 18 strikeouts in that time span, so you absolutely do love to see that, and I do think that for Snell, he's going to do a nice job holding down the sink, so I do think that Zach Gallen going to give up his fair share of runs, so I did set my total at an 8.8. I do like the Dodgers on the run line, and the 8.5 total over. 961, 962 on the card. The Seattle Mariners are on the road against the Cleveland Guardians. Logan Allen is on the bump for Cleveland. George Kirby goes for Seattle. Seattle is a minus 148 to a minus 157 favorite, plus 128 to a plus 135 is that number on Cleveland with a total of 8. The under is minus 120, and the over is even. I'm going to be able to take a shot on the Guardians. I did set them at a plus 128 for George Kirby. He has had issues both this season and throughout his career on the road as compared to at home. It's going to be a little bit of an earlier game for this West Coast team, as this is right around about a 3:30 local time start. Obviously, not as bad as like a daytime game or anything like that, but still something to be mindful of. And for George Kirby, he is doing it for a little bit of positivity. 4.05 ERA, but 3.39 fielding dependent. Really not giving up a lot of home runs. 0.9 home runs, 2.4 walks a lot per 9 innings. Had 1 blow-up start on the road against the New York Mets, but throughout his career, he hasn't been quite the same pitcher when he has been on the road rather than when he has been at home. For George Kirby, a 3.16 home ERA thus far this season, giving up at home about 0.7 home runs per 9 innings on the road. This goes up to a little bit north of 1.2 home runs per 9 innings with a 5.08 ERA. And Kirby's swing and miss stuff has been up a little bit this year as well. He's been able to get 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. And for Logan Allen, one thing that he is going to need to clean up is the walks. For Logan Allen, he has been giving up well over 3.6 walks per 9 innings. He's only getting about 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, but last year was giving up 2 home runs per 9 innings. That's down to about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. So 4.35 ERA, closer to 4.64 fielding pen with 2 earned runs or fewer allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. Now, got completely banged around like a piñata, giving up 9 runs at his last start against the Texas Rangers. That was not necessarily tremendous, but he's also backed up by a bullpen that is in the top 6 in terms of bullpen ERA for the Cleveland Guardians, even without Emmanuel Clase. These guys have really been able to excel and have been able to do a nice job holding down the fort. The likes of Eric Zabrowski, Cade Smith, Nick Enright, Jacob Junis. These are all guys that are giving you a sub 3.25 ERA. Hunter Gaddis was having a miserable run towards the early summer months. He's been able to get his ERA back down to about a 3.20, so he's been ascending. Kobe Allard has been good as a long guy. The issue that you've got with the Cleveland Guardians is that this is a very top-heavy lineup. Jose Ramirez, 26 home runs, hitting at 285 with over a 355 on base. Stephen Kwan, 270 with regards to his average at the top of the lineup. He's been solid. Kyle Manzardo only hits at 231, but he has been able to give you 21 home runs. But I mean, along with Manzardo, Brian Rocchio, Daniel Schneemann, who he's been out the last few days, Ano Martinez, hanging between about a 225 to 231 is an issue. But then you've got a lot of guys towards the bottom that just have not been great, to say the least. Likes of a Nolan Jones, who did have a nice home run on, I believe it was Wednesday, so a little bit of credit there. He, CJ Kafis, Bo Naylor, Lane Thomas, David Fry, lots of guys are hitting a $195 or lower. And then for the Seattle Mariners, it's a little bit of an all-or-nothing lineup. They're averaging over 5 runs per game away from home, top 2 team in the American League with regards to their run production away from home, and they've been able to get a lot of production out of Cal Raleigh. The big jumper is up to 50 home runs with a 350 on base. JP Crawford also supplying 350 on base. Julio Rodriguez, Randy Arozarena, 25 home runs apiece. You've had Eugenio Suarez belt out over 40 home runs, so only for about a 240, so this does become a little little bit of an all-or-nothing lineup. That said, I do think that for the Cleveland Guardians, they do find a way to be able to get to George Kirby, who just hasn't been the same pitcher away from home, and I do think that Seattle can do their part with this total as well. So by till at 8.2, I like the over. And for the Guardians getting a plus 130 or higher, I'm going to be looking at them on the money line. 963, 964 on the card. It is the Chicago White Sox playing us the New York Yankees. Carlos Rodon is on the bump for the Yankees. Yandres Gomez goes for the White Sox. 9 is the total. The under is minus 115, over is minus 105, minus 220 to minus 227 is that number on the Yankees. Plus 180 to plus 197 is that number on the White Sox. Set the White Sox at a plus 186, so I am going to be willing to take a shot on them on the money line. For Yandres Gomez, he looked really good at the minor league level for Charlotte. He was posting up about a 2.25 ERA. He was getting over 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, and Charlotte is the AAA affiliate, by the way, of the Chicago White Sox. Love what I saw there. And since he's come up to the big league level, I'm not going to say that he's been amazing. He certainly has not been terrible either, as he's pretty much made 3 starts with the Chicago White Sox. 4 earned runs allowed in 14 2/3 innings. That'll cut it. I mean, that's not necessarily going to wow you or anything like that, but he's been getting a little bit over 9 strikeouts per 9 innings, so very encouraging signs here. He had 1 bad appearance with the LA Dodgers that jacked up his ERA for the season, but I mean, still, a guy that's pretty rock solid, and actually, if I'm not mistaken, began his season with the New York Yankees, so welcome back Potter situation there. And then you got a guy on the flip side in Carlos Rodon, who sometimes does give up the deep ball a little bit too much, and he actually used to be on the Chicago White Sox as well, so welcome back for him as well. But he has been tremendous. 3.24 ERA, 1.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings. His 5.9 hits allowed per 9 innings, leads qualifying American League starters. He's been getting 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, and with the Chicago White Sox, while the lineup has been a little bit better recently, this is still a bunch that does find themselves in the bottom 5 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. You just have not been able to get a lot out of these guys. Like Lennon Sosa has been your main guy, being able to supply 17 home runs. He's been able to give you a bit of something, but you're going to need to get a little bit more out of some of these ancillary pieces, as you've got a lot of guys hitting below a 235. Miguel Vargas, Andrew Benintendi, Luis Robert, all these guys between 13 and 15 home runs are only at 235 or lower. Brooks Baldwin is hitting for about a 236 with less than a 300 on base. The catcher spot has actually been great. Kyle Teal, Edgar Quiero, both hitting above a 280. These guys have been supplying a bit of something. And Mike Tauchman is up above a 350 on base, so that's been encouraging for the New York Yankees. Just a lot of power in this lineup. All but one player in the starting lineup yesterday with at least 17 home runs, and Giancarlo Stanton has 17 home runs with 163 at-bats, so he's done so in a very small amount of time. Cody Bellinger, Trent Grisham, Jazz Chisholm, all between 25 and 26 home runs. We all know what Aaron Judge is doing, right around a 440 on base, 41 home runs. Even Ben Rice, after he had a little bit of doldrum towards the early summer months, he's been able to pick it up as well. So these guys have all been solid, though. Anthony Volpe, even though he has the 18 home runs, hitting at 204 is rough. You've had Austin Wells be able to give you 16 plus home runs as well, but he hasn't been able to for a lot of average. And for the Yankees, they do leave a little bit of something to be desired in the bullpen, though. Luke Weaver, after he was a little bit rough coming off the injured list, he's looking a little bit more solid as well. David Bednar, Tim Hill, these are guys give you a sub 325 ERA, but Camilo Doval with the Yankees has been shaky. Devin Williams is rocking an ERA above a 5, but they're getting Fernando Cruz off the injured list. That should be able to help out. He's been able to give you a sub 325 ERA. And for the Chicago White Sox, the long guys have been really good in the bullpen. The short guys have not been, and they had to put Elvis Peguero and Dan Altavilla on the injured list. That hurts some. You've got Grant Taylor, Jordan Leisure, Brandon Iser, all rocking it above a 4 ERA, and Tyler Gilbert. He just had a disastrous appearance against the Royals a few days ago, but Steven Wilson, Mike Vasil, these guys have been able to give you sub 325 ERA. Do think that this is actually going to be a little bit of a lower scoring game. Some might tell it an 8.1, so like the under for the White Sox, plus 187 or higher. Sign me up on that money line. 965, 966 on the card. It is the Angels, and they're on the road facing off against the Houston Astros. Tyler Anderson goes for the Halos, and Christian Javier is on the bump for the Astros. Astros are between minus 170 to minus 182 favorites, plus 150 to plus 155 is that number on the Halos with a total of 9. The under is minus 120, and the over is even. And with the Astros, set their money line price at a minus 179. If you're looking to lay a run and a half with them, I was willing to take a plus 107 or higher there, and right now that initial FanDuel opener is a plus 116, so I'm going to be willing to sign up there. Tyler Anderson just has not been great this far this season. I think that he went on the paternity list for a little bit of time. Congratulations. I know he's dealt with some back issues, so he has literally had a little bit of everything that has kept him amount of the rotation over the last few weeks, so that's been very interesting to say the least. And I am for the Angels. The only reason why they're worse off without him is because they had to throw for a few starts Jack Echonowitz, who's just absolutely terrible, and that's like the only guy that could be a downgrade to Tyler Anderson, because Anderson is rocking a 4.73 ERA, but a 5.63 fielding dependent, 1.9 home runs, 3.7 walks allowed per 9 innings. He's lucky his ERA is now above a 5. 4+ runs allowed in 3 out of his last 4 starts, really not getting a lot of swings and miss, 5 punch-outs or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts. And then I've got a guy, Navier, who he's only made a few starts thus far this season because he landed on the injured list. Has not been great since coming off the injured list. He's made 3 starts. He has allowed a grand total of 8 runs, 6 of which have been earned over the course of 10 innings. Not really allowing the deep ball too much. He's allowed only 1 home run, but it's really been the command. He's been giving up the walks. He's given up, I believe now, 6 walks in these 10 innings, so that's been a little bit of an issue. Now, his first start coming back against the Boston Red Sox was solid, but the last 2 starts against the Baltimore Orioles, he went a combined 5 innings, albeit he only gave up 1 run in one of those starts, but man, that is not necessarily what you want to see there. The good news is he does go up against an Angels team that they do love to swing and miss. The bad news is the Angels also hit the deep ball. The Angels are a bottom 6 team in terms of on-base percentage, a top 6 team in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. You've got Taylor Ward, who's been able to give you 30 home runs with about a 320 on base. Even though he doesn't hit for a lot of average, Mike Trout is actually hitting at 232 this season, 362 on base. He's been able to supply the team with 20 home runs. Zach Neto has been able to give you 23 bombs. He's hitting at 270, and Joe Adell setting fire to the rain with his 30 home runs, but he's also setting fire to his on-base percentage, being less than a 300. Nolan Schunall has been able to give you about a 355 on base. Luis Renifo, he's been hitting a little bit better recently, but it's been a rough season for Travis d'Arnaud, Christian Moore. A lot of these guys at the bottom of the fold have not been great, and what has really not been great has been this Angels bullpen, as Hunter Strickland is a guy that they currently don't have right now. They've had Brock and Roll Burke along with Kenley Jansen be able to supply the team with sub 335 ERAs, but then you get into the likes of Ryan Zephyrian, Reed Detmers, Connor Brogdon, Sam Bachman, all these guys with above an ERA of a 4. And for the Houston Astros, I know that they had to put Steven Okert on the injured list, but you still have a lot of guys who've been able to go out there and do their part with this bullpen. Josh Hader being out obviously hurts his team a little bit, but you've got the Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Steven Okert, these guys being able to give you a sub 325 ERA. They've been pretty rock solid. And for the Houston Astros, even though it's not necessarily a fearsome lineup and they've been in the bottom 5 in terms of run scoring ever since the All-Star break, you still have Christian Walker give you 21 bombs, about a 300 on base. Yenier Diaz, he doesn't give you a lot of on base at a 288, but 18 home runs sitting at 255. Jeremy Pena is sitting above a 300. Jose Altuve, 23 bombs, 335 on base. Victor Carantini has been able to give you now 11 bombs. So these guys have been relatively solid. Do think that the Astros take it to Tyler Anderson and company. I'm going to take the plus money on the run line of the Astros, plus 110 or higher. I'm in there, and I do think that Anderson gives up quite a few runs. Some might tell that at 8.8. Right now we're seeing a flat 9. I'd be willing to take a shot on the under, as I do think that Javier gives you a good start. So looking at that 9 under and the run line of the Houston Astros, 967, 968 on the card. The Detroit Tigers are on the road against the Kansas City Royals. Seth Lugo goes for the Royals. Chris Paddock goes for the Detroit Tigers. 8.5 is the total. Overs between minus 120 to minus 125. Plus 105 to even money is the number on the under. With the Royals, they're between minus 115 to minus 123 favorites. Even money to plus 105 on the Detroit Tigers. And I did set the Royals out at minus 129. I'm going to be willing to go on them on the money line. I can't necessarily say that I'm some sort of Seth Lugo stan or anything like that, as he does give up a little bit more contact than what I like. But what I've also noticed about Seth Lugo is that this guy's been a whole lot better at home rather than on the road. Overall for the season, Lugo 3.99 ERA, 5.11 fielding dependent, 1.7 home runs, 3.2 walks allowed per 9 innings, while getting just a hair over 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and the bottom has really fallen out on Lugo. How about 6+ runs allowed in 3 out of his last 4 starts? Very much less than savory, but 3.28 homer ERA for Seth Lugo, a 4.76 ERA on the road. Now, it's not like Lugo's doing a great job of being able to keep the ball in the yard at home, 1.5 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but on the road that goes to about 1.7 to 1.8 home runs per 9 innings, so that's a big giant issue. And then not like Chris Paddock has been laying the world on fire himself, whether he be with the Detroit Tigers, whether he be with the Minnesota Twins. It's been a little bit of a rough and tumble season for him. 4.98 ERA with a 4.65 fielding dependent, 1.5 home runs allowed per 9 innings. The command is not bad, 2.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, but only 6.5 punch-outs per 9 innings, and He's now given up a grand total of 14 runs over the course of his last 4 starts, and he's got 9 strikeouts over the course of his last 4 starts as well. Man, that's not great, especially considering he's went, I believe, 20 1/3 innings in that time span, so that's not necessarily what you want to see for the Detroit Tigers. They don't even back him up with a good bullpen. For Detroit, ever since the beginning of the month of June, this has been a bottom 7 team with regards to their bullpen ERA. Why Brian Herter is currently down at the minor league level, I have absolutely no idea, but you've been able to get some relatively good production out of the likes of Bailey Horn, Troy Melton, Will Vest. These are some mix and match guys who've been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Brennan Hennefy has not been bad in this bullpen either, but then you get into some of these long guys and they have not been great. Tommy Kahnle has been absolutely terrible for the team. Whenever they've thrown out their Chase Lee, he's rocking an ERA above a 4, but they had to send him down to the minor league level as well. So at this point, they're just looking to mix and match some of these pieces in the bullpen, and none of them are really panning out. And for the Detroit Tigers, it's just all about this lineup. They're a top 8 team with regards to their run scoring, and you have a lineup where pretty much all but one guy on a day, sometimes two guys, as Trey Sweeney sometimes makes starts, are all give you a batting average of a 255 or higher. The oddball is typically Spencer Torkelson. He's still hitting like a 245, 330 on base, and he has supplied the team with 28 home runs. Riley Green has been able to give you 31 home runs, and then Dylan Dingler has been able to hit about a 270. Cole Keith doing a nice job moving the line with over a 330 on base. You've had Kerry Carpenter really step up as well. 22 bombs. He's been able to hit a 260. So top to bottom, it's a pretty good and pretty balanced lineup. And for the Kansas City Royals, if you look ever since the All-Star break, they've actually been a top 8 team in terms of runs per game. Vinny Pasquantino has been a big reason why. How about 28 home runs for him? He has been magnificent, hitting above a 260. Bobby Witt Jr., he's up to 19 bombs. He's starting to look like the guy that we all know and love. Above a 350 on base, 34 stolen bases. And then Jonathan India, a little bit of a flopperoonie this year, hitting a 235 with 8 home runs. You expected more there, but Salvador Perez, he's up to 23 home runs. He's starting to find it for this team. You've had John Rave hit a 200. Nick Lofton has not been amazing when he's been out there. Jack Aglione had a lost season. He's on the injured list, so a lot of these young guys just have not been able to step up. But for the Royals, they're in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA as well. Lucas Erceg, Carlos Aceves, both of these guys have been very rock solid, as these two guys, along John Schreiber, have all been able to give you a sub 305 ERA. And now you're getting Daniel Lynch off the injured list. He's been able to give you about a 289 ERA, so he's been able to do a nice job in this bullpen as well. I do think that in the end, the Royals do find a way to get the job done, and I think that both of these starting pitchers give up plenty of runs. So my total 9.2, I'm in on the over, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the Royals on the money line. 969, 970 on the card. The Texas Rangers are on the road against the Athletics. Jeffrey Springs is on the bump for the A's, and Jack Leiter is on the bump for Texas. Texas is back to being an underdog between plus 104 to a plus 107, minus 118 to a minus 126 is that number on the A's, and so on this game is 10.5, unders minus 120, and the overs even. And for the Rangers, I made them a minus 117 favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay that money line with the Rangers. It has been a very interesting run for them, as if you look ever since the beginning of the month of July, their run scoring has really went up. 5.4 runs per game. Now, albeit the 20 run outburst that they had on Wednesday, where they were going up against position players, helped out a little bit with that regard, but this is no doubt a much improved lineup over the last few weeks. Corey Seager's up to 21 bombs, hitting for about a 375 on base. Adolis Garcia, not going to give you anything in terms of on base, but he's been able to hit 18 home runs. They've been dealing with an injury to Marcus Semien, as not mattered, as Kyle Higashioka since the beginning of the month of July, hitting above 300. Now they're dealing with the injury to Evan Carter. That is an issue for this team, but you've had a lot of guys that have been able to step up quite well. Josh Young, he's been hot and cold, but he and Josh Smith have both been able to do a solid job, move the line, finding a way to be able to get on base. And then for the Rangers, they've got by far the better bullpen in this game. They're a top 8 team in terms of bullpen ERA. We have seen Robert Garcia start to have some issues for the team recently, and Chris Martin has been on the injured list. That's been a little bit of an issue, but you've got the likes of Sean Armstrong, Cole Winn, Obi Milner being able to give you a sub 3 ERA, so do love to see that. And for the Athletics, they just have not been able to get any sort of bullpen pitching whatsoever. For the Athletics, it's been a big issue for them, as you've had Michael Kelly along with Sean Newcomb be able to supply a sub 350 ERA. Elvis Alvarado right around about a 350 ERA, but then got so many of these guys like a Mitch Spence, Ben Bowden, Tyler Ferguson, Grant Holman, Osvaldo Bido, who they had to use as a starter a few days ago, all posting up above a 4 ERA. And for Jeffrey Springs, he has just not been effective when he has been at home. He's experiencing a career low in terms of strikeouts as well, 7.2 strikeouts per 9 innings. So he's got a 4.15 ERA, about a 4.76 fielding dependent. Overall, giving up 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, but at home that shoots up to a 4.73 ERA with 1.9 home runs allowed per 9 innings. And for Jack Leiter, the 4.4 walks allowed per 9 innings, that's an issue, 3.81 ERA. He's getting about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Would like to see that go northward a little bit, 4.36 fielding dependent, but with the way that the Texas Rangers have been hitting, that's been rock solid. And you do have an Athletics team that they themselves have been very much on fire with their offense. They've been a top 5 lineup in terms of run scoring since the beginning of the month of July, as you've got a quartet of different guys who will be able to now give this team at least 23 home runs, and all these guys are hitting at least a 260 as well. Tyler Soderstrom, Shea Langoliers, Brent Rooker, Nick Kurtz, and Kurtz has been able to give you over a 380 on base. These guys have been rock solid. Now some of the guys at the bottom you could use a little bit more average from, as Lawrence Butler has toilet bowled a little bit with that regard. Luis Urias has had his issues as well. Max Muncy, the wrong Max Muncy, has been less than amazing, but Colby Thomas has even given you 4 home runs in 64 at-bats. Small sample size, but a good sample size there. So circumstance where I did somebody total 10.3. I do think that Leiter is going to be able to hold down the fort. I like the under, and I do like the Rangers on the money line. Made them the minus 117 favorite. 971, 972 on the card. The Rays are on the road against the Nationals as Mitchell Parker goes for the Nationals, and Adrian Don't Call Him Doogie Howser is on the bump for the Rays. 9 is the total. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And with Tampa Bay, they're between minus 134 to minus 145 favorites. They're between plus 118 to a plus 125 is that number on Washington. And I did set the Rays at a minus 146, so I'm going to be willing to lay the number. Now, Adrian Howser has experienced quite a bit of regression ever since he left the White Sox, and you knew that he was going to. He was posting up a 2.10 ERA with less than 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He was getting very lucky on balls in play. He was giving up less than 0.4 home runs per 9 innings, and that has sort of reared its ugly head here with the Tampa Bay Rays. In his 4 starts with the Rays, 5.32 ERA, 5.03 fielding dependent, giving up 1.2 home runs per 9 innings and 6.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, so that's something that he needs to work on. But Mitchell Parker is getting even less swing and miss. For Mitchell Parker, 5.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, 1.3 bombs, 3.5 walks per 9 innings. He was quite fortunate towards the beginning part of the season that he wasn't giving up more deep balls than what he was. 6.01 ERA, a 5.01 fielding dependent. He has given up at least 4 runs in each out of his last 5 starts. Like, good grief. I'm doing the mental math in my head right now to add up how many runs he's given up. 29 runs in the last 5 starts. 29! Like, good grief. This is not great to say the least. On 7 homers, like, you'd actually think that the home run number would be much higher than that, but he's just giving up contact after contact after contact, and now he goes up against the Tampa Bay Rays team that has honestly been relatively solid at the plate. You've got Junior Caminero, who's been able to give you 39 home runs. He doesn't draw any walks whatsoever, but he's hitting in the neighborhood about a 255. You get back Brandon Lau. He has been able to get loud for this team. He's hitting for about a 265, 26 home runs. Andy Diaz seems to be able to fly 22 bombs, 345 on base. I think you've got a lot of base stealing. Jake Magnum hitting a 285 with 20 stolen bags. Chandler Simpson hitting darn near a 300 with 38 stolen bags. Now, you take a look at some of the guys at the bottom of the lineup, like some Christopher Morel, Tyler Walls, the entirety of the catcher spot, hitting 225 or lower. That's less than savory. And for the Rays, I don't understand why Eric Orze is down at the minor league level. Like, some of these guys that they're throwing out there should not be at the big league level. Like, for some reason, they're still holding on to Griffin Jax, Brian Baker. These guys have not been good in a Rays uniform, but Kirk Clevenger, a sub-2 ERA. B. Fairbanks has been relatively solid as well. And for the Washington Nationals, this team instead sinking last in terms of their bullpen ERA. Like, man, these guys have not been great, to say the least, as they are begging for anyone to be able to give them a sub-4 ERA. As Cole Henry was doing that for quite a while, but we have seen things really start to go downward for him. Clayton Beeter is down to about a 3.6 ERA. Yay, barely there, but I like some Connor Philkington, Shinkuzi Ogasawara, Jackson Rutledge, Orlando Rabalta. These guys are just flaming gas cans right now in that bullpen. And for the Washington Nationals, they just don't hit the same when they're at home rather than away from home. Washington Nationals are actually averaging about 4.5 runs per game away from home compared to 4 runs per game at home. Like CJ Abrams, for example, he's been able to give you 17 home runs, hitting about a 270, but all but 3 of those home runs have come away from home. They DFA Nathaniel Lowe. He's out on the Red Sox. Josh Bell has been able to above a 250 since the beginning of the month of July. He's up to 16 home runs. And James Wood, 26 home runs. Took him a little bit of time to be able to get the power back since the home run derby, but now up to about a 355 on base. He's been solid there, but Riley Adams has had to fill in for Keibert Ruiz at the catcher spot. He's giving you nothing. Robert Hassel, young gun, 269 on base with 2 home runs and 128 at-bats. You expect more there. Dylan Cruz has had a flop of a season, hitting below the Bedell sign of a 200, so I do think that for the Rays, they should be able to go out there, take it to the Washington Nationals. I did set my total here at a 9.2, so at the 9, I'm in on the over, and I'm in on the Tampa Bay Rays on the money line. 973, 974 on the card. It is the Toronto Blue Jays playing us the Milwaukee Brewers. Freddie Peralta goes for the Crew, and Shane Bieber looks to make us all believers, as it is between minus 130 to minus 137 that you're going to need to lay on the Blue Jays, anywhere between plus 110 to a plus 118 on the Brewers. It is total under minus 120. The over is even, and did set my total at 7.6. I'm in on the under. Now for Freddie Peralta, probably due him for a little bit of regression, and it's crazy to think when a guy's getting 9.8 strikeouts per 9 innings that that's a career low, but that's the case for Freddie Peralta. He just seems to give up a few too many walks. That's always been his MO throughout his career. 3.5 walks per 9 innings, 268 ERA, but a 369 fielding pen. He's given up a combined 1 run over the course of his last 4 starts, a total of 22 innings. I do think that that is going to be going northward, especially against a Toronto Blue Jays team that has been one of the best hitting teams in all of baseball, especially at home. At home, they're averaging 5.4 runs per game. That leads the entire American League. And for the Blue Jays, you've had Bo Bichette along with Vlad Jr. really find it. Both of these guys give you 21 plus home runs. Both give you above a 380 on base. But I mean, you've had Bo Bichette do a really good job hitting for just below a 300 for the team. And he's been able to now supply the team with, I believe, 16 home runs, 18 out of Aston Barger. And Dalton Varsho hits for no average whatsoever. So right now hitting at 228 with a 279 on base. But 15 home runs is 15 home runs and 162 at bats. So you'll take that for the Blue Jays. It's been a relatively pedestrian bullpen, as we've had Braden Fisher along with Brandon Little, the Killer Bees, both give you a sub 305 ERA. Uriel Rodriguez has had some issues recently, but still about a 340 ERA. And for Shane Bieber, it was a small sample size in his first start, but he looked really good. This was on the road against Miami Marlins, 6 innings, 9 strikeouts, and they just did him right. If you look at the minor league rehab, it was with the Cleveland Guardians and the Toronto Blue Jays. He made 7+ starts. He was getting over 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, posting up a sub 3 ERA. He was looking really good there, but now has to go up against a Milwaukee Brewers team that they had a little bit of a rough go of it the last 2 days, hitting with men in scoring position, but this is just a team that is moving the line in general. And for the Milwaukee Brewers, I don't know how long this split is going to be able to maintain, but they're continuing to give you 5.6 runs per game away from home. That is by far number 1 in all baseball, despite the fact that they're in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. The only guy that is healthy right now that's giving you over 15 home runs this season is Christian Yelich, 26 bombs, and he's been one of many, many guys on this roster that have supplied at least a 349 on base. You've got Yelich, Bryce Turang, William Contreras, Sal Friedrich, Isaac Collins, all at least a 349 on base. Collins is up to about a 370 on base, and Andrew Vaughn in a Brewers uniform and a Brewers uniform only, 9 home runs and 150 at bats, 370 on base. So I mean, all these guys are stepping up. Andrew Monasterio's now hitting at 285. Had a big home run against the Reds like a week or two ago. So that's been interesting. And for the Brewers, if you look since the beginning of the month of June, this has been a top 8 team in terms of bullpen ERA. You've had so many guys like Nick Mears, Abner Uribe, Aaron Ashby be able to go out there, give you a sub 325 ERA. Grant Anderson as well. Trevor McGill was solid, but they had to put him on the injured list. A little bit of an issue there, but that said, I think that Shane Bieber is going to be able to go out there, hold down the Brewers, and I think that Freddie Peralta, though he's doing for a little bit of regression, gives you a good start as well. Semi-total 7.6. I'm in on the under, and I'm in on the Blue Jays money line, willing to lay up to a minus 135 there. We go to 975, 976 on the card. It is the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they're going to be playing us the Boston Red Sox. We do know that Paul Skeens is going to be on the bum for Pittsburgh, and right now for the Red Sox, it's old to be determined. So this game is presently off the board, but I'm hearing through the grapevine that we might get Peyton Tolley. Hopefully I said that correct, the Red Sox prospect, and if we get a bullpen game, it'll probably be a relatively similar handicap, as I'd be setting the Pirates as a favorite here. Right now I've got them at a minus 118 on the money line, so I need at least a minus 117 to lay with them, plus 118 or better. Looking at the Red Sox, and then set a total to where a 7 or less, I'd be in on the over 7.5 prior to the under, and you realize how low of a total that is at Fenway, by the way. And if you do get Peyton Tolley, he has been incredible as a prospect for the Boston Red Sox, posting up a 304 ERA with 13 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now, if you do get a little bit more of a bullpen game, this has actually been a really good Boston Red Sox bullpen thus far this season. They're in the top 5 in terms of ERA, as Aroldis Chapman has been really the best closer in all baseball. He is posting up an ERA of 1 with nearly 13 strikeouts per 9 innings, but you've got plenty of guys that you can mix and match with. Brendan Bernardino, Greg Greg Weiser, Justin Wilson, Garrett Woodlock, all supplying a sub-3 ERA, and Woodlock can give you multiple innings. So even if you do have a piecemeal game like a Cooper Criswell or something like that, I probably would be putting Criswell like more of a plus 125 to a plus 130, but I would be still looking in that 7 or less to the over 7.5 or higher to the under sort of situation, because the Red Sox do have a lot of firepower in that bullpen, and with the Red Sox, this has been a lineup that has just been really a good move the line, holds greater than some of its parts sort of lineup. Alex Bregman, 380 on base, has been rock solid. Trevor Story goes deep yesterday once again, 22 bombs. He has been on a nice run, as there's just so many guys on this Red Sox team right now, hitting between about a 249 to a 260, as you've got Story, Jarren Duran, the currently injured Ryler Abreu, Cedon Rafaela, and the Carlos Narvaez has seen a little bit of fall to a 243, but I mean, these guys have been able to step up for the team. Rob Refsnyder continues to give you a 360 on base in a situational sort of situation, and then for the Pittsburgh Pirates, the team is still dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. They just have not been able to give you too much with that regard, as for the Pirates, you've got 3 guys on the roster right now with above 8 home runs. Tommy Pham, congratulations on getting 8 home runs, and he's now giving you a 340 on base. He's been solid. Nick Gonzalez is hitting about a 275. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa doesn't give you any power, but I mean, he's moved the line, hitting for about a 270, and that's more than what you could say for a lot of these guys on the Pittsburgh Pirates, as you've got the likes of Henry Davis, Oneil Cruz, Alexander Canario, Emmanuel Valdez. So many guys right now hitting below a 210. Jared Trollo's hitting at 225, and for Cruz, he is leading the way with 18 home runs. Andrew McCutchen, 12 bombs, hitting for about a 332 on base, and Brian Reynolds, 14 home runs, hitting for about a 305 on base. You just expect a little bit more there. And for the Pirates, this has actually been a relatively solid bullpen. Dennis Santana, Isaac Manson, have both been very solid, being able to give you a sub-3 ERA, but one of their better relievers in Braxton Ashcraft is now a starter for the team. Jory Moretta has been a little bit up and down. Chase Shogurt has dealt with injuries, and he's dealt with just inconsistency as well. So it's an interesting circumstance here, because you've got a guy in Paul Skeens who has been dominant. 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's got a 207 ERA. Felix Pennant very much in line with that, as he's been giving up fewer than 2.3 walks per 9 innings. He's allowing about a half a home run per 9 innings, and he's done it on the road as well. On the road, he's got a 250 ERA. If you throw out the game that he had at Coors, closer to about a 2 ERA, he has been so good with 4 home runs allowed in 79 and third innings away from home. So that's why we've got such a low total. 7 or less, looking at the over 7.5 prior to the under. If you get like a bullpen game / Peyton Tolley for the Red Sox, need at least a plus 119 to take a shot on their money line with the Pirates, would be willing to lay up to a minus 117 with them. 977, 978 on the card. The Slam Diego Padres are on the road against the Minnesota Twins. Zebby Matthews goes for the Twins, and you've got Mr. Nestor Cortez on the bump for the Padres. Padres minus 120 to minus 125 favorites, and between even money to plus 105. That number on Minnesota with an 8.5 total. The overs minus 120, and the unders even. And with the Padres, I'm going to be willing to lay it. I set them at a minus 137. For Nestor Cortez, probably doing for a little bit of regression with his small sample size with the Padres. 3 ERA, but a 5.41 field independent in his 4 starts with San Diego, giving up 1.7 home runs, 3.3 walks per 9 innings. But all in all, it's been relatively solid, and he gets to go up against a Minnesota Twins team that is absolutely gutted in terms of their lineup, because they traded away darn near everything at the trade deadline. They had a fire sale, and then the streamers that they utilized to advertise the fire sale, they went as well. As you've got Byron Buxton, who's still been rock solid, about a 340 or so on base, 27 home runs. He's been able to do a nice job. Brooks Lee up to 14 bombs, hitting at 250. Trevor Larnach, 16 home runs, 320 on base. These guys have been good. And Luke Hackshield, with his small sample size of about 100 at bats, hitting above a 300, he's been able to give you 4 home runs. That's solid. And you've got power hitters for this team. Matt Wallner's giving you 20 home runs. Cody Clemens, 14 bombs, but both of these guys hitting below a 220. In the case of Wallner, 321 on base. For Clemens, really no on base whatsoever. And Royce Lewis, he's been all over the place all season long. For the Twins, you just have a big bullpen disadvantage as well. They're 22nd in the league in terms of bullpen ERA, number 1 on the flip side for the San Diego Padres. As for the Minnesota Twins, there's just no reliability in this bullpen whatsoever. Like, Thomas Hatch might be your best reliever at this point. You've got likes of Cody Funderburk, Cole Sands, Michael Tonkin, so many guys that are posting up above a 385 ERA. And for Zebby Matthews, he's a strikeout artist, 11.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's got a 530 ERA because he's giving up 1.5 home runs and 3 walks per 9 innings. Now, this is a Padres team that's in the bottom 5 of the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis, but you still have Manny Machado, you still have Fernando Tatis Jr. doing their thing. Both of these guys have been very solid in terms of moving the line, getting on base. Machado Machado, 21 home runs, 350 on base, 370 on base, 18 home runs for Tatis, and then you pick up with Ramon Laureano. Overall for the season is give you about a 350 on base with 20 home runs. Ryan O'Hearn has not hit the deep ball too much with the Padres, but he still give you above a 350 on base. You've been able to have Jake Cronenworth move the line with a 360 on base. Luis Arias continues at about a 285, so I do think that the Padres having that number one bullpen in terms of ERA in the big leagues is going to be able to get it done for them. You've got so many guys like Jason Adam, Adrian Morejon, along with David Morgan, who will be able to give you sub-3 ERA. Wandy Peralta is down below a 3 as well. Robert Suarez sometimes can be a little bit adventurous as a closer, but all in all, like what I'm seeing on this Padres team, I do think the Cortez experiences a little bit of regression, but I think that Zebby Matthews gives up some runs as well. So you're at the 8.5, like the over, so I might tell it at 8.8. And for the Padres, willing to lay up to a minus 136 on that money line, and wrap things up with 979, 980 on the card. The Giants are playing those to the Baltimore Orioles as Dean Kramer is on the bump for Baltimore, and Robbie Ray says hit Pepper Ray taking another start. And with the San Francisco Giants, you're going to be able to find them as a pretty good size favorite of between minus 148 to a minus 164, between plus 134 to a plus 140. That number on Baltimore, 7.5 is the total. Under is minus 120, and the over is even. I did set the Giants at a minus 149 on the money line. I'm going to be willing to lay it. For Dean Kramer, so much of it has to come down to the fact that he just has not been the same pitcher when he has been away from home rather than when he's been at home. For Kramer overall this season, 4.19 ERA, 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. It's not great, but 1.2 home runs, 2.2 walks per 9 innings. He's doing a nice job of not self-inflicting a lot of wounds, coming off of a very brutal start against the Houston Astros, in which he gave up 7 runs, 6 of which were earned, so that was very much less than savory. But for Dean Kramer, it's just all about being able to pitch in Baltimore versus being able to pitch away from home. That has been the big elixir for him. As for Dean Kramer, right now, if you dive in on those splits, he's been posting up at home a 3.26 ERA. At home, he's actually giving up a higher home runs per 9 rate than he is away from home. Away from home, he's only giving up about 1.1 home runs per 9 innings, so he's been relatively solid there, but posting up a 4.97 ERA when he is away from home. And Robbie Ray has been able to do a really good job of holding it down when he's been in San Francisco, and honestly, he's just having a nice year in general. Strikeout stuff is a little bit down, only about 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's his lowest mark since like 2015, but 3.5 walks per 9 innings for him, that's actually pretty good. He's given up 1 home run per 9 innings, 2.93 ERA. Now that is a 3.89 fielding dependent, and we have seen him give up 3+ runs in each out of his last 3 starts, albeit some of those were unearned runs. But again, San Francisco just seems to really play to his fortes and his strengths. As for Robbie Ray, 2.84 home ERA, 3.02 ERA on the road, and at home he's given up 0.9 home runs per 9 innings. And for the Giants, even though they did fire sale many of their pieces at the trade deadline, you still have a rock solid bullpen that is in the top 3 in terms of ERA. I don't think that they're quite that good, but still, you've got the likes of Joey Lucchesi, Jose Buto, Ryan Walker, guys that came in yesterday, all posting up a sub 3.75 ERA. Randy Rodriguez has been able to give you a sub 2 ERA, so these guys have come in there, held down the fort. You've got Spencer Bivens, who's had his issues, and the big thing for the Giants is being able to have good pitching, because right now they are dead last in the National League in terms of runs per game at home. I will say Rafael Devers starting to get it going a little bit more along with Willie Adames. Adames had a 2 home run game yesterday, up to 24 bombs, but over the last 40 days, hitting right around the middle of line 200, that's an issue. And for Rafael Devers, just not what the Giants were hoping for. Had a multi-home run game against the Chicago Cubs a few days ago, but in a Giants uniform, 12 home runs and 228 at-bats, and inning at 241. You just expected a little bit more there. And then the guys at the bottom of the lineup, the entirety of the catcher spot, Luis Matos, guys like this hitting below a 225 have been an issue. Matt Chapman has been able to give 17 home runs at a 340 on base, but aiming for just a 231 batting average. Eloy Ramos, he's been able to give you 14 to 15 home runs, 340 on base. He's been rock solid. And then on the other end for the Baltimore Orioles, this is just a bullpen that you really don't want to be placing any faith in whatsoever. Cade Stout has been solid in the bullpen, but they had to use him up yesterday. And then you've got the likes of Grant Wolfram, Yarmil Hidalgo, Yennier Cano, all posting up an ERA above a 4. Corbin Martin has not been great. Uncle Rico Garcia's not been bad, but for the Orioles, this team is last in the American League in terms of runs per game away from home with about 3.75 runs per game. And now you've got Jordan Westburg, Adley Rushman on the injured list. You really haven't gotten too much out of Ryan Mountcastle. He's sitting at 250, but the on-base percentage is less than a 300 with only 4 home runs. Gunnar Anderson, Jackson Alday, both of these guys between 15 and 16 home runs. Henderson has been able for about a 275. Dylan Beavers has been really good as a young guy, and I know that Samuel Basal is a guy that they're very high on, hasn't necessarily produced a ton at the big league level, but there's some upside there, and Dylan Carlson has just been absolutely awful thus far this season. So do think that the Giants do a nice job going out there, getting the job done, and again, the way that Dean Kramer has pitched on the road is quite a bit of an issue. So set the Giants on the money line at a minus 149. I would much rather go money line than run line, because I do think that with this being a pitcher pitcher-friendly ballpark. It's going to suppress offense. I'm barely willing to go over at a 7.5. I set my total at 7.6, so looking at the over, and I'm going to go on the Giants on the money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. A big thanks to our good friend John Bollman, who does great work with Baseball Bowman. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like here on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I'm with you guys every single day throughout the regular season into the postseason on this podcast. So I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.
Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.